Greetings, Starfighters. I'm going to have to go through this pretty quick because I've been sick for the last several weeks and I'm feeling okay now, but I can kind of already tell that it's not going to last. So I'm going to film the video portion for this episode, the one you're on right now, for Dazzle, starring Jeff Fahey, who you might know from The Lawnmower Man or from Machete. I believe that was him in Machete. And Mia Sara from Legend, the Ridley Scott fantasy movie with Tom Cruise, and Tim Curry, although most people really only remember Tim Curry, which, fair. So I'm gonna get into Dazzle in this episode. Hopefully I'll be well enough that episode actually comes out in January, the month I am filming this video portion, because I would like the next movie to come out on February 9th, which is the 5th anniversary of Shameless Cashgrab. Fingers crossed on that one. I'm going to stop for a second and then film the video for that episode. But you won't be seeing that video for that episode until that episode. After I stop talking here, you're going to hear me talking about Dazzle.
All right, so I have watched Dazzle from 2000, unfortunately. And yeah, this episode did not make it in January, folks. Sorry about that. I'm especially sorry that this is the movie I have to talk about for what's going to be the 5th anniversary episode of Shameless Cashgrab. Yeah, by the way, if you're watching this the day this goes up, it's the 5th anniversary of Shameless Cashgrab. I would say I wish I had a better movie to talk about, but then again, this is a set where it at least looks like, there might be one or two on here, I don't know. It honestly looks like every movie on this set is connected to Paul Matthews as either a director, a producer, or a writer, in some cases two or more of the above. And to call that man the Ed Wood of children's cinema would be an insult to Ed Wood. Because at least Ed Wood had ambition, He had heart. Anyway, plot summary courtesy of Letterboxd. A fairy takes on human form and enters the life of a widowed children's book author and his daughter. Short and to the point. Before we get into this, can I just say what a massive pain in the ass it was to find pictures on Google Images for a movie whose title is a fairly common noun that more than one movie uses as a title? And also there were a bunch of images from Space 1999 and a bunch of unrelated late 90s, early 2000s movies for some reason. So yeah, we're breaking out the screen caps from my own computer again. We open on music that the closed captioning describes as whimsical. I suppose the captioners were feeling charitable that day. We go from the opening credits to a young girl about to cut a live earthworm in half in front of her classmates at school. Okay then, off to an interesting start. Once the future serial killer sits down, our main character for the movie gets up and unveils a diorama about fairies, much to the annoyance of her science teacher. So it's that kind of movie. We fade to the girl's house, her name is Melissa by the way, and her father reading her a bedtime story. He goes downstairs and talks to his, I'm assuming father, about his newest book since he's a children's book author, as the plot summary said. His name is Tom. Tom's father has concern about the tone of a draft of Tom's newest book, which we can infer was written after his wife's death. And by concerns, I mean he says he found the draft so depressing he had to put it down because it made him, quote, want to kill himself, unquote. And I suppose he has a point. When has any successful children's book ever been sad? What? No, I never read Watership Down. Anyway. Turns out the older man is Tom's publisher, not his father. I stand corrected. Melissa's teacher shows up at the house the next day, and at first I thought they were setting her up to be a love interest for Tom. That turned out to be incorrect. Pointless but expected shenanigans here as Tom, for no good reason, tries to hide all his fairy-related works, as that is the subject of his books, from the teacher's sight when she expresses a concern about Melissa's apparent obsession with fairies. I mean, I guess if Tom just said, well, she probably gets that from me, I write novels about fairies for a living, they would need to come up with something else to pad the runtime with. We are not even 10 minutes into this, and I am already annoyed. Spoiler alert, I'm going to be a lot worse than annoyed later. Naturally, the teacher figures this out anyway, and we jump cut to Tom bringing a non-fairy related book up to his daughter's room that night to read to her, and Melissa susses out pretty quickly that this was the teacher's idea. Meaning the child in this movie is smarter than the writers think the children watching the movie are. We abruptly, and I do mean abruptly, cut to a bunch of sparkling lights flying around in a forest, and one of the lights breaking away from the others, and you can see where this is going. So the fairy from the plot summary shows up, gets hit in the face with a book by accident, gets chased by a dog, flies face first into a tree, and turns into a naked woman. I got nothing here, folks. This is a thing that has happened in this movie, and I am as confused as you are. And it only gets weirder when said naked woman shows up at Tom's door, says she's one of his biggest fans, and passes out. Still naked, by the way. There is the top of a butt crack visible here. This is still a children's movie, right? So, of course, Tom calls the only person who can possibly help out when a strange naked woman shows up at your house in the middle of the night and collapses into your arms. His publisher, who brings his son along, and his son's look, the publisher's son's look, can best be described as late 90s. And we have an amnesia plot. Ugh, those are almost always fun. And by almost always fun, I mean usually cringy. She'll get her memory back before the movie is over, certainly. If most movies don't portray amnesia very accurately to begin with, a Paul Matthews movie, even though he is just a producer on this one, certainly isn't going to. And now the lawn gnomes we've seen in front of Tom's house a few times have come to life. Movie with the utmost respect, I just have to ask, what the fuck is going on? By the way, one of the gnomes is played by the same actor who played the troll in The Magic Door. I don't particularly care, but if I don't mention it, someone in the comments is going to think I forgot. So, Jeff Fahey finally appears in the movie now, and for some reason they put an effect on his voice that makes him sound like Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies. God, I'd rather be watching Hellraiser right now. He says something about how in a week, Crystal, the fairy's name is Crystal, and that's all she remembers about herself once she wakes up on Tom's couch, that Crystal will be his. He's called the Collector. We cut back to the gnomes, and they are now dressed like the men in black. Down to the sunglasses. Okay, is this actually all happening, or did I get dosed with something? Wasn't this a movie about a widowed author and his daughter? The gnomes are apparently looking to find the lost fairy, and although they know her exact height after becoming human, they manage to miss her as she leaves, and they enter the hospital that Tom took her to. I swear on my life, I'm not making any of this shit up. And there is still an hour and 3 minutes left, well, including the end credits, but still. Some more shenanigans involving the gnomes that leads to a transphobic joke. Well, I think that's a first for this series. Didn't even get one of these back in season 2, and that was mostly 80s sex comedies. I don't even want to describe this bit. It's bad. I mean, like, not quite Ace Ventura levels of bad, but fucking yikes. And the unnamed walking stereotype is, of course, implied to be a sex worker. God, did Jill Barrett write this movie? Kitchen shenanigans happen, but I can't bring myself to care. In fact, I'm seriously tempted to just end this segment right now and go into the random thoughts section. But I managed to hold it together after the casual homophobia and lurkers back in season 1, and the Mexican stereotype character and Japanese stereotype character trading racist barbs back during the Beach Girls in season 2, and the trying to have it both ways about police brutality and Streets of Blood in season 4. I can make it through this. Also, it occurs to me the transphobic joke in the movie makes the fact that I am wearing my Dreamer shirt in the video segment a little awkward. Oh, I am so sorry to have your face associated with this bullshit, Nicole Maines. I am so sorry. You deserve better. Anyway, the teacher comes back, continuing what this movie seems to think is a running gag of her driving way too fast, and she knocks on the door, and she has gotten dressed up for Tom. because now she knows he's a famous children's book author. Kind of feel like that was something she would know already, but whatever. Anyway, Crystal is out the house again, so if you think a misunderstanding is coming, congratulations, you don't have dementia. By the way, it was how the teacher was acting in this sequence that made me realize that she was not actually going to be the romantic interest. And, oh, of course, he's going to fall in love with the fairy. The fairy he described to his publisher as weird. Guys, gals, and non-binary pals, we are witnessing a momentous occasion. This movie may be giving us the most literal version of the manic pixie dream girl in cinematic history. I am shooketh. By the way, if it seems like I haven't been talking about this film's villain very much, that's because he hasn't really done much of anything. There was his first appearance, and then he showed up at the jail the gnomes were in. Oh yeah, the gnomes landed themselves in jail, to make sure that they were going to be kept there longer, and that's really it so far. And the movie is almost half over at this point. I'm guessing they only had Jeff Fahey for a day. Well, at least he put more effort into this one than Bruce Willis does into the stuff that he only shows up for a day on set for. The misunderstanding I alluded to earlier happens, though a bit later than I thought, and there's an argument that would make more sense if Crystal wasn't a fairy with amnesia, and I am so ready for this movie to be done. More so once, after another interlude with the gnomes in jail, the fucking transphobic joke comes back. This is a running gag now, and I hate it. The fact that this is supposed to be a children's movie, a fairy tale movie, just makes it worse. And considering how messed up it would be in any movie, that is saying something. Matt Walsh would probably like this movie. The collector finally re-enters the picture, capturing another fairy who was living as a human, only without amnesia, in a jar. So only now, at 50 minutes into an 85-minute movie, do they actually put any effort into establishing the threat the antagonist presents beyond vague proclamations of, she's mine after a certain number of days. I forget. I mean, I think, yeah, oh wait, he said a week, didn't he? I don't know. This movie sucks, folks. So Tom has a birthday party. He's obviously in love with Crystal now, yada yada. The gnomes show up and cause her to hit her head by accident, which restores her memories, i.e. the stupidest way possible that movies solve amnesia. And Tom believes her when she says she's a fairy because the movie needs to get to the third act quickly, blah blah. Publisher sees her using her powers, meaning the drama of him thinking Tom is gone mad literally lasts less than 2 minutes because heaven forfend we have anything interesting in this movie. The gnomes explain the collector to Tom. Tom and his publisher's son find a ritual to turn Crystal mortal, which I'm sure surprises no one. The collector is defeated in a fight scene that's kind of meh, but meh is better than what I expected. But the ritual isn't completed on time, and Crystal becomes a fairy again and has to leave Tom and Melissa behind. It just occurs to me that my rushed description of like the third act actually makes it sound more interesting than it really is. Anyway, Melissa's teacher, who witnessed Crystal using her powers, has gone completely cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs and gets institutionalized against her will. Oh, and Tom wrote a new book, and it's called Dazzle. We have a title. And of course, the fairy on the cover is Crystal. And Crystal is back with all her memories, and is now the new science teacher because the gnomes decided to break their own rules. Setting aside that there's nothing in this movie that I can remember that suggested they could even do that, doing so robbed the fight with the collector of what little emotional impact it had. Granted, it was very little. Like, you'd probably need an electron microscope to see it, but still. This is like the ending of Space Jam 2, oddly enough. Now, at least with Dazzle, we have a reason the character who should have been gone isn't gone, so there's that. On the other hand, Space Jam 2 didn't have any gross transphobia in it that I'm aware of. At least Blockbuster Buster didn't mention it in his review. Never mind. Space Jam 2 wins. Fuck this movie. Let's get out of here. Random thoughts I had while watching the movie. I got a peek at Jeff Fahey's character in this movie before I actually watched it, and he looks like if you ordered Shang Tsung off Wish.com. I spent so much of this movie confused, you have no idea. Remember how I gave The Last Leprechaun credit for avoiding an easy poop joke? This movie does not get that kind of credit. At one point, one of the gnomes describes the collector as a bounty hunter from the world of darkness. Were I more awake at this point of the movie, I might have made a Vampire the Masquerade joke in the script. But then again, I don't actually know that much about Vampire the Masquerade, so that's probably for the best. Tom's actor plays his role straight, which would be fine if not for the fact that he's the only one. Everyone else in this movie is either just not very good or just here for the paycheck. Possibly both. His acting sticks out like a sore thumb in that way. So we don't see the fairy the collector captured earlier in the movie freed from the bottle he put her in or anything, so I guess she's just dead then. Okay. Time for this episode's FUJK segment. So hey, you heard about how that lady in Scotland totally abused UK's libel laws to silence someone who mocked her on Twitter in a frightening attack on free speech? Yeah, that happened. A couple of times as it turns out. The link in the show notes is actually not the incident that I was thinking of when I came up with this episode segment. But you know what? I'm just going to talk about the one in that link instead. It'll take less time. This poor woman, Nicola Sperling, rightly pointed out that people with transphobic views are dangerous around children. Especially trans children, though the toxic ideology they impose into the impressionable minds of cis children is certainly terrible too. And that lady in Scotland basically used the threat of legal action against someone telling the truth the way my country's former president, the Tangerine Taint, would. Also, I think one time John Cleese tried to sue a writer for The Guardian for saying he wasn't funny. Yeah, Michael Palin is basically the only good Python left. Anyway, as an actual billionaire, as opposed to a phony billionaire, that lady in Scotland didn't need to have the truth on her side, as in the UK the burden of proof in a libel trial is on the accused, not the accuser. She could easily afford to just hire a football team's worth of lawyers, use either version of football you want in your head for this metaphor, it works regardless, and drag out the process long enough to bankrupt anyone who isn't wealthy who wants to defend themselves, and not just cave and put out a public, but ultimately false, apology that gives people like that lady in Scotland and her sycophantic defenders undeserved credibility. I realize at this point this segment has become as much, if not more, a critique of British libel laws than of Turf Wizard Book Lady, but my point still stands. Final verdict. This movie's a little odd. Now, I've got nothing against odd. I like David Lynch and all that. But combine the nonsense of the plot, clearly written by people who think that kids are just morons until they hit puberty, and then a button labeled smart gets pushed inside their head, with just an out-of-nowhere transphobic joke that I am still stunned made it into a children's movie of all things. I mean, that kind of joke wouldn't have been acceptable in a movie made for adults either, but here it's especially out of place because... Okay, I'm going to go ahead and describe it now. Anyone who might be triggered by this should go ahead and tune out now, and I'll see you back for The Sorcerer's Apprentice, not the Nicolas Cage one, next episode. So, the gnomes get themselves arrested, and when the cell door closes on them, the camera pans over to... Well, the movie's end credits, as one final fuck you to basic human decency, literally credits the trans woman and implied sex worker who makes a pass at the gnomes in the jail cell, and I hate that I'm about to use this word, but I kind of have to provide context. Transvestite. And not even in the it was the accepted term at the time way that like Rocky Horror Picture Show uses it. Just fucking hell, why is this in this movie? If the scenes in question had had any relevance to the plot, it wouldn't have really made it any better. But the fact that they didn't tells me that this wasn't like a case of ignorance. Not like with the disguises in the first Austin Powers movie, for an example of a thing that's kind of in an iffy gray area. This was added to the movie for no other purpose, far as I could tell, other than to contribute to the harmful myth that trans women are just predatory men. I hate all of this. I could forgive a lot of this movie's foibles, but not this shit. Take those 2 scenes and that 1 credit away, and this movie would probably rank higher than Merlin the Return, but nope. So, fuck Dazzle. Come back next time for a movie called The Sorcerer's Apprentice that has nothing to do with Disney or Nicolas Cage, but does have Robert Davi with a Gandalf beard. Because why not? Have fun. Stay safe.